This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks us about aging well.
Woo! I had a song in my head, and now I can't remember it, but it was about like back in the day when we were kids. Anyways, that's what Joey sounds like straining his vocal cords.
That's wow. Hoo-wee. Hoo-wee. Let's see. This is what an errand sounds like. There you go.
And this is what an executive producer and game show host, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
Oh, that was a fun. Can we just consider this episode done?
Yeah.
That was it.
Jess, I think you need to work on your game show host catchphrase. Or maybe not, actually.
No, I think that
I take it back. Hi, this is Jess is kind of a good catchphrase.
Yes. It's very Drew Carey-esque.
Can it be a catchphrase if it's your name, or is that just isn't that sign off or sign on?
Right. It's usually like a sign off. It's like spay and neuter your pets, right? Not necessarily a like, let's go to the leaderboard, Mo. I mean, I guess I literally just did a sign off and an on ramp in two different game shows. So yeah. God, is this house clean? Can you get me out of this house, please?
It's clean. We just dirtied this place up, but we're just going to live with it. We're going to close our eyes for a minute and ignore the mess and bless this mess.
Fine. Bless this mess.
Jessica and Aaron.
Yes.
I have, certainly for the past 7 or so months, been telling myself that I'm 40 years old, even though I turned 39 7 months ago. But in my head, I'm like, I'm 40. Contending with being a man of a certain age. And I was having some conversations with my dad and also like one of my very good friends who is a woman and is thinking about perimenopause and things like that, and the way that she's sort of orienting herself towards aging and exercise performance and things like that. And I was realizing, I was like, oh, I kind of have a lot of things that I'm doing around aging that just sort of like slowly piled up. And then suddenly I was like, am I doing too much? Said it like an alto.
No,
yeah,
get close to soprano on that one.
Yeah. And so in talking with Aaron recently, I think maybe you have had some similar reflections. And as men of a certain age, we're sort of saying, how do we age right?
I giggle because like Men of a Certain Age was also a sitcom on TBS, and they were in their like 60s, but
no, it just seemed that way because of how old you were when the show came out.
It is very likely true. That's really, really true. And like, I mean, one of the things that comes to mind for me is like, and I actually said this right before we started recording, but like everybody gets older, everybody's aging, you know? And so I'm really always curious about how people get older. But what I've been experiencing and what I've been running into is like, it's been a little bit of a surround sound. It's been me groaning when I get out of chairs, right? Like my dad did that and now I'm doing that. It's like, oh, my hips kind of hurt because I sat wrong for too long. Like that's happening. And then it's like the Instagram ads that I'm getting like within the past 6 months are all like, mobility, stretching, like get older with grace. And it's just like, oh, I mean, I know that all that's just because they know how old I am. And like people in my demo are looking for hip flexors and all that kind of stuff. But I guess with my old man grown and all of that. I've also had a lot of like health changes. Like, okay, this is the thing, all right? So like going to the doctor used to just be like, it's a day off of work or a morning off of work. I'm just going to the doctor and then I come home. Now I'm going to the doctor more often. And there's always like a little surprise. It's always like, ooh, we need to do like a different set of blood work, or ooh, you've got a funny thing on your neck. Let's do something about that. Like there's always a little game show surprise. And I'm like, fuck, I didn't know I was going to go to the doctor like 6 times in 6 months. And it's like, it's expensive and it's annoying. And sometimes it's just uncomfortable. They be poking you and prodding you. And you're like, I didn't want to do that today. So that part of it, I've not been enjoying.
It is inevitable that in a conversation about aging, we're going to talk about like that moment when a core theme that was never top of mind of just what I'll call it, the big bucket of health stuff.
Yes.
Like the same, like when that just suddenly
the bucket got bigger.
It becomes like, have you ever seen Inside Out, the Pixar movie, when like new islands emerge all of a sudden? It's like that when like all of a sudden your like health stuff island just appeared out of nowhere, and now I have to think about a thing I was never thinking about, like aching. Like what even is aching?
Yes, I've only discovered aching in the past year. It's and now I know.
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, I have some of like the stereotypical aging ones of like, I herniated a disc when I was 30, and now pretty sure that disc ain't there that much anymore. Like, and so I'm like waking up in the morning and I'm like, gotta get up slow. The lower back hurts. It's real stiff. Gotta loosen her up. I've like started hanging in the morning just to like decompress my spine. Like, that's new.
But before we lose all of our listeners' interest, we must acknowledge that these core themes, the thing that we are preoccupied with, be it because of life stage or often I feel like age instigated too, those are sort of intertwined. Like I was starting to like try to write out some of the things, like it begins with like forming yourself and like getting a handle. Maybe even just like getting a handle on basic stuff is where we begin. Like just getting a handle, like eating. When you're a baby and you're just like, man, this is hard. Sleeping also. Sleeping comes back around, by the way, as a core theme. But at the beginning, it's just the basic stuff. And then there's like forming yourself. Then there's like the fitting in period. That may be the teen, preteen years until the finding yourself period, the 20s, which also coincides with like the achieving period of like, did you check these boxes of like job and other societally imposed life milestones or other things, but also like independence and taking care of yourself. And then is like the period of like taking care of other people, presuming either that you have a family of other children or maybe like parents that like, I think that's the thing that has surprised me talking to some folks my parents' age is like they didn't realize the caring for others continued beyond the children having years to also the your parent taking care of years of like, whoa, I didn't even conceive of the fact that my parent would get old, and now this is a protracted theme in a new variant, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much here. Like, but one of the things that I think is different, even in some of the stuff you were talking about, Aaron, and what I think I'm seeing in myself that I was not noticing, but is definitely happening, is like the proactive approach to aging. Like, I feel like my parents were just like, getting older, that's what happens. And I'm like, oh, like I turned 35. I'm taking like nicotinamide riboside supplementation because your body needs that. And then I'm like, well, I'm probably not getting enough protein, so I'll take protein supplementation. I'm like, well, I should take fiber supplementation because that's good. And people are saying colon health is important for men. And then I'm like, recently I was reading some studies on creatine and the impact of like muscle mass maintenance and cognitive health. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to take creatine supplementation. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm thinking about cognitive health. I've heard things about lion's mane, so I'm taking lion's mane and like ashwagandha supplementation now. And I'm like, I didn't feel any anxiety about any of these things. It was just like, well, they're saying that you should do this. And like, I'm not trying to like not age. I'm just trying to like, if there's a practical thing I can do to like maintain well-being longer, I'm like, sure, I'll do it. But I'm like, that's a lot of pills I'm taking in the morning or like scoops of stuff in a drink. And I'm like, did I like jump the shark and I missed it?
I'm imagining, the character Kirby, the giant pink balloonish creature, when he like sucks it with like opens his mouth huge and like sucks in all things that are there. You're like, give me all the supplements, like slurping all.
Well, I mean, it's so funny because like I love when Joey describes this because I am so normie by comparison in that like mine is just trying to like get to the gym once a week. like that's my version of like ashwagandha, or like maybe I can walk for an extra 5 minutes. Throw that on the end of the dog walk. But I think, and also none of these are endorsements. We are not doctors. I'm just going to put that legal disclaimer out there.
Not a doctor.
Not a doctor. This is just what we're trying. But hearing what both you and Jess just said take me to two things. I think one is that I was watching this. I was watching some content that was about Social Security and like, Social Security going empty in the next 5 to 10 years or something like that. And one of the main drivers of that is that people are living much longer. People are living significantly older than when Social Security in the U.S. was established as a program. And the living longer comes because of wild advances in modern medicine. And so when we think about like how much that manifests in much older people, like older people didn't expect to live this long. I mean, this plays out in their personal retirement funds as well, where it's like, I should have saved more because I didn't realize that I was going to be living longer. And just to be a little death becomes her about it, like living longer doesn't mean that you're just like forever 20. Like things start cracking and breaking and creaking and stuff. And when I talked to my dad about this, I remember like 20 years ago, he would say like, yeah, man, watch out. When you hit 40, everything just falls apart. And now he's like, oh yeah, watch out. When you hit 60, everything falls apart. And then literally this morning he said, yeah, but no, watch out. When you hit 80, everything falls apart. And I'm like, Dad, like you pick your time and please stop proving where my anxiety comes from.
What is left?
Yes. But well, the other thing too is that like for us younger, we're growing up during all of these wild advancements and hyper-targeted marketing. And so just like the ability to have exposure to things, data, and solutions and to try them, like we're a guinea pig generation in that regard, where just we haven't had as much of it, or we have much more than every other generation has, which has its risks and potential upsides too.
And this is the thing, the sort of like experimentation thing that's interesting. Like Joey, the example that you described is like, let me experiment looking many lengths ahead of me, like many years forward. Can I work backward from that like far away point that I can't even imagine right now just to get ahead of it? What's interesting, it reminded me though, like a different strategy for experimentation. Reminded me of this Radiolab episode I listened to last fall. It was called The Secret to a Long Life. And the idea was like, how can you live the longest feeling life possible? You know, when it's like, man, this week felt like 5 weeks, you know, like that sensation of like, can you extend time as a way to do this? And not just in terms of like making you healthy for longer, but what if you like get the most out of the time you live? And you should listen to it. It's a really great episode. But I think the thing there is like the way to extend time is new stuff. And instead of having to think forward, it's just like trying things you've never done before and like giving yourself a stimulus that you have to like, your brain has to process versus just like coast through. Whenever you're doing things that are familiar, you can just like fly through time. But when it's something unfamiliar, it's like, whoa, okay, which actually puts a lot of pressure on you. And so I think that was sort of like the, like, spoiler alert, a little bit of the drawback of the episode they talk about is like, also it's a lot for yourself to like try to constantly give yourself new stimulus. And it's, I don't know, it's like an interesting thing to compare that to like slurping up all these probiotics and like supplements and stuff. Is like, there is definitely a point gone too far of trying to live well to the point of making your present bad.
Yeah. Well, like my I've realized like over time that I don't really like see myself past 80. Like I have asthma and whatever. And so I was like, I've never really like been able to be like, what will life be like when I'm 95? Like that's never been, but I'm more concerned with like cognitive decline or just like the inability to like do daily functions. And so I don't know that I think about longevity. I think about like my quality of life over that 80 years and being like, well, if this thing just like makes it so I lose muscle mass less and I just have to take some pills in the morning, like I don't really care. Like I'm not sweating it. So like then maybe that's okay. But at some point, right, like what it like I don't have that like medicines I'm taking, but like somehow I still have like the full pill tray like every morning or something. Like have I like missed the point or something, you know?
Well, and I guess I'd counter this by saying like when we were all in our younger years, we didn't know what we didn't know and have the wisdom or experiences or whatever. And now it's like, oh, I have like cognitively expanded since, and I have already cognitively declined. Like it has already happened. And I'm there's a part of me that's like, well, I guess like I didn't know what was coming before it was happening, and I also didn't really know as it was going down. Like, am I the boiling frog? Like, is everything actually just fine because it's happening to me, and then it will have happened? Like, you comparing you now to 95-year-old now, or even 80-year-old you, is like, of course there's going to be an obvious chasm there, but will it be so bad if you don't realize your slow and inevitable decline?
I find this really, I love this. I love this so much.
Just a casual Friday afternoon chat.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll slow march into the void.
Yes. Well, there are these three ideas. I mean, I can't string them together in a coherent way. So I'm going to spit them at you and your ear holes will hopefully help make sense. Sorry with the spitting. Yeah, I'll wear a face mask. I promise.
You have a towel?
I'll try. So there it is. Found it. Okay. So one thing that takes me to is like in the cultural imagination, like the quarter life crisis or the midlife crisis, like you don't hear about those anymore. And even like when John Mayer's singing about a quarter life crisis, that was 20 years ago. That was like clever. But I mean, like I don't hear the seeds of that, which are this like immediate fear of being gone, which I feel like was so much more a thing with like you gotta buy your Mercedes or your convertible. Like there are these like things that pop up. So that's the decline of that I find interesting. Another thing is the like as we learn more about things and have more access to medical things, there's also just like cooler medical stuff and like style and design is actually elevating significantly. Like pill boxes, there are some really cool looking pill boxes. Like they're like in gunmetal gray and they're like magnetized to go in different places in your house. And like seeing these things clearly trying to be recast for a different, not just a different generational aesthetic and a different mindset, but also for deeper pockets, because like millennials are going to be inheriting a lot of the wealth of those much older people. So like they're trying to get that money from it.
Millennials are used to a certain caliber of
yes
thing. They're like, and I need my pill boxes to also reflect that.
They have to be cute. I don't want the blue plastic one with the darker plastic letters on top. Spoiler alert, that's what mine used to look like. But the third thing that it sort of brought up for me is that I don't know, like that There's one thing which is thinking about how to stave off decline, and then there's another mindset which is like just completely not thinking about the future because everything is so uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself actually much more in that second camp where like I also have this inability to imagine 89-year-old me. But it's also because every time that I tried to imagine 40-year-old me in the past, I couldn't really do it. And I don't know what's going to happen between now and then that's going to change who that person is.
Right.
So it's like I just get trapped in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is like, you made me think about like how much we're tracking data too, which is, and like the science. Like, I'm a Celtics fan. In the playoffs, Al Horford, who is 2 years younger than me, is like making a significant impact in several of like the Eastern Conference Finals games, and LeBron James is like a month younger than me, and he is still playing in the NBA. Like, we can see the impact that the advances in science is having in like a very practical way. Of like, Tom Brady played in the NFL as an elite quarterback until he was 45. Like, even when he was at his lowest level, he was like the 10th best quarterback in the league, which is like significant for a 45-year-old man competing against like 24-year-olds or whatever, right? Like, the idea that can happen, and what does like the mix of things look like, the ability to sort of maintain the machine better allows for you to take advantage of like the wisdom that you would also gain, right? Like, part of how LeBron has like been able to stay in the league is because he plays smarter. He is still like a physical specimen and capable of doing it, but he can't do the things he could do when he was 28. But he's like, he can do it smarter now, take like the right plays off or things like that. And so you're like, clearly there is like a thing happening where science is like pushing us into these places, and people are like, well, I guess if LeBron can play in the NBA at 39, like, I can like make sure I ride my bike 100 miles a week and like take some lion's mane since I don't have a hyperbaric chamber in my bedroom or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, check your mail room. Someone sent you a hyperbaric chamber today. No, but something that you just said also made me think about the like the I wouldn't call it attention, but like there's wisdom and there's smarts. And when you were talking about cognitive decline, Jess, I think that oftentimes that gets talked about as like perhaps the things that we like wrap into the smarts, like being smart. And like one of those, this thing about how do we age, right? It's like, I would love if both of those canisters actually filled up, that like I were smarter and wiser, like my experience compounded in a way that I could apply it with more creativity and more effectiveness. But it's like, you know, I talk to my parents all the time and I'm like, I don't know, those buckets, what is filling up those buckets and the rate at which they are like filling and depleting is very inconsistent. And it changes from day to day and week to week. But also, I think that I witness with each of them, I wouldn't call it denial, but it's what I've heard so many times about aging, which is that, actually there's two things. One is that you never feel as old as you are. Or I'm sorry, you never think you're as old as you are. Like your brain is always younger than your body is. And it's just like, sometimes you look in the mirror and you're like, who is that old fuddy-duddy? Ooh, that's me. And so like knowing that and sort of like being prepared for more of that, I find a little bit of respite in it. But then the other thing, which is like the life advice that I try to hold on to most, is that there was a hospice nurse, apocryphally told, who did a lot of interviews about what people on their deathbeds would always say, what their regrets were. And she did interviews about regrets. And the number one regret was working too much. People wish they had worked less. And what, you know, when you dig underneath that, what they were getting at is that, and all the things that sort of popped up in these conversations were around, I wish I would have worried less about other like exogenous factors and just followed my wants and wills more, because that would have made me live a better life. And I don't know, when I hear those things, it also gives me a sense of relief to think that like, if I can now learn to listen to what I need and what I want and actually solve for that rather than where I think I should be or where I hoped I would be or doing, I will actually live a better life. I will enjoy that time better. And maybe that will create the room for the time dilation that Jess is talking about. Maybe that'll introduce some of that like surprise factor and help me enjoy it more. So that's how I'm hoping to try to age, right?
Yeah.
Check in with you in a couple of weeks. We'll see how it goes.
What that makes me think about is like use it or lose it, right? Like that is kind of like an aging, it's like your muscles, but it's also your brain, right? Like and you like love gaming, like you're constantly giving yourself that like mental stimulation in new and interesting ways, which are like maintaining your sharpness as you age, right? And like that is kind of like the thing that you have to think about with aging is like, to your point, like what is the endogenous motivation versus these exogenous factors? And like, you're gonna let go of something, right? You're not gonna run as fast. You're not gonna do these things. But like, if running as fast is the important thing to you, like you can do work to make sure that you can run pretty close to as fast. But then that's like you're picking that, like that's your lane, you know?
Yeah, it feels like you're talking about that sort of more forward thinking thing, whereas Aaron, I'm getting from you more of like the how to best maximize the present as well, like maximizing the present for the present and maximizing the present for the future. It's a bit of both of those things, right? Like I feel like that's the core of what we've talked about is like aging right is not just a matter of one of the, it has to be some combination of those two things.
Yes. Even the concept of the future is one that is totally in our imaginations, right? Like the only thing that exists is the present. And so again, I find myself in many instances genuinely like perplexed by thinking about things in the future. Cause I'm like, why would I waste time trying to explore all the different permutations of what could happen between now and 2 weeks from now versus trying to optimize for the moment? And if I do that right, then maybe that's going to create more moments in the future. And I don't denigrate. I mean, literally, we're at an innovation firm. Like, yes, I think about the future, but it heavily informs, I think, a way to find peace in it, because the future can also just only give the future is only unknown, and you have to like make sure that you hold on to that optimism or that like that action in the moment to hold on to and create some optimism for the future. I just love that.
Yeah, like there is something about like you have the present and the future is a wish, and like you can attempt to like make some wish come true, but like that the treadmill thing is like, if you're only thinking in the future, you're just like getting things and you're not even appreciating whatever wish you were chasing once you get it, you know?
If I could take the star that you just made me want to wish upon, I would grab the corners of it and I would wrap it around myself really tightly and then realize, oh, look at that, I'm in Jess's wrap-up corner. That's and I think that's where we'd find ourselves.
Wrapped in a star.
Wrapped in a star
blanket.
Indeed.
As my Abu always says, everybody's got to go. And as she also reminds us, I don't feel 100. I feel like I'm 20. Even if we make it super far into the future, who can imagine how we will feel, what cognitive capability we have, what physical capability we'll have, what context will happen in our lives that we can't even possibly know right now. So for now, play your video games. Take a ridiculous amount of nutritional supplements if that's the joy that you seek. Fine. Play the sports ball. Root for the sports peoples. Celtics. Yes. take care of other people. Take care of yourself. Do the whole life thing. And make fun of the people who complain about the aches, because even if it's coming for you one day, it is not yet, and it is hilarious.
Ashwagandha, take my joint supplements.
Wow. Wow. Kudos to Jess and boodos to Joey. Boodos. Boodos.
Boo this man. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by this blood pressure monitor that's a little bit too tight on my cuffs because why is it around my neck? Oh my God, wait. Oh, good. It's loosening back up. Okay, good. That was a commercial.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and human oximeter, Jess Vander.
We'd also like to thank the man who lowers my cholesterol just by smiling, our sound engineer, Alex Gontel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator. The decline has happened. Our programming coordinator and cognitive supplement, Les Jacobs.
We'd also like to thank our corpus callosum of Nora Mestrich and Sarah Gilbert. Shit, wow. I was serious. I was trying to make it work, and it all fell apart.
Your camera.
Oh,
you
no.
just blinked out for a second.
I did. I wigged. It all fell apart. Thank you, Nora and Sarah and Les.
The cognitive decline.
Oh,
and as always, thanks, Helen. Special thanks to Friday afternoons because
it's interesting.
It's interesting. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. At least y'all have an excuse. It's 11 a.m. here. I don't have the excuses. It's Friday morning. I really quickly want to thank, and I'm thanking something that I haven't even tried yet. System Shock. So so System Shock is the like precursor to BioShock. Great game, classic game from Ken Levine. They recently, about a year ago, so maybe not that recent, released a remaster for it, and I've heard it was very, very good. I love the BioShock series. There are rumors that they're going to be announcing officially a release date for BioShock 4 next week at Summer Games Fest, which I'm very excited about. But I downloaded System Shock yesterday, and as soon as I get through the rest of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm going to start it. I've also been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for 4 months because the game is so long. It is so long. Please give me a game that is half this length. I like it so much, but good God, it's too long. And I just want to play System Shock, and I can't play 2 games at once. So thanks and boo.
I am on your corner, Aaron. No thanks to 100+ hour games because I am too old for that. I don't have that many hours left. Don't take them.
Don't take them. And like, I love Cloud. I love Tifa. I love Barrett. I love Kate Sith. Like everything about this is really, really fun. The combat system's great. The places are great. The translation from, the version of 97 to now is fantastic. But give it to me in 40 hours, please.
Yeah. Bye, Felice.
Bye, Felice.
With that, love you, mean it. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Recording. Yum. Isn't that always Ricola?
Yes.
I thought you were going for
Red Robin.
Yeah, I thought you were going for Red Robin, but you went for Ricola, which is also good.
I appreciate both.
Recording. It's really good.